Hey guys, what is up? This is Mr. A. Cruzy here, and in this review, I'm going to be doing a movie review on this movie released in November of 1993, and it's also on a Robin Williams movie too. And I've actually seen this movie two times. Yeah, I know I missed out a lot, like in the past recently, but yeah, I actually first watched this movie last year, and of course, I also watched it the second time this year, back in like February. And this is on a movie that's considered to be one of Robin Williams' best movies, and I think it's personally my favorite Robin Williams movie of all time. And so this review is going to be on Mrs. Doubtfire. Mrs. Doubtfire stars Robin Williams and Sally Field, Pierce Brosnan, Mara Wilson, and yeah. And of course, the movie is also directed by Chris Columbus with music by Howard Shore. So in this movie, how far would an ordinary father go to spend more time with his children? Daniel Hillard is no ordinary father, so when he learns that his ex-wife needs a housekeeper, he applies for the job. With the perfect wig, a little makeup, and a dress for all occasions, he becomes Mrs. Doubtfire, a British nanny who is hired on the spot, free to be the woman like he never knew he could be. The disguised Daniel creates a whole new life with his entire family. Outrageous, hilarious, and often touching, Robin Williams makes this box office hit a film to be watched again and again. And yeah, like what more can I say about Mrs. Doubtfire? I absolutely love this movie. This is like one of Robin Williams' best movies he's ever been in. And like I said, it's probably my personal favorite Robin Williams movie out of all of them, because this movie was just too good. And I read on research that when this movie first came out, it kind of got like mixed reviews from critics when it first came out. But then as years passed, it got better. The critical reception got better and better when people started to realize that there was more to the story than just how this movie why this movie got mixed reviews. And I gotta say, this movie was actually very funny too. It's because Robin Williams was a very funny man, and this movie did have some very funny humor in some scenes, and including funny dialogue. And pretty much we know the best part about Mrs. Doubtfire is definitely Robin Williams, because he was terrific in this movie. Like he was so funny, and Sally Field was also really good in the film as well. And yeah, this movie does have a good cast, and Pierce Brosnan, Pierce Brosnan, who plays Stu, I thought he did good. And I gotta say, Chris Columbus actually does a really good job directing this film. Like Chris Columbus, who's known for directing the first two Home Alone films, and he directed the first two Harry Potters. Yeah. And a long time ago, this movie was intended to get a sequel, because a long time ago there was supposed to be a sequel to Mrs. Doubtfire, but then it entered development hell like for years, all the way up until 2014 when Robin Williams passed away. And ever since 2021, Chris Columbus said that a sequel to Mrs. Doubtfire is completely impossible, because we know it's not the same without Robin Williams. It's already been a decade since Robin Williams passed away. But then again, his legacy continues to live on, including how we watch his movies like Mrs. Doubtfire. And the sound design that were used in this film, like the sound effects and the sound design to this movie was actually designed by Gary Rydstrom. Yeah, I think Gary Rydstrom's sound, because I always love Gary Rydstrom's sound effects. I think his sound design's awesome in the Pixar movies he worked on, and the shorts too. Gary Rystrom's sound effects and sound design were also really good in the film too. And Howard Shore's music is also really enjoyable too. Like Howard Shore has done music for a lot of films, including the ones that he's best known for, like The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Howard Shore did the music to those films. And oh yeah, and of course the kids at the time who played the siblings in this film, especially Mara Wilson. Mara Wilson, I thought was good in the film as well, because I think she does a pretty good job. Like Mara Wilson from like Matilda, and her last movie was the Thomas the Tank Engine movie, Thomas and the Magic Railroad. Yeah. And of course, like, the movie does have some very funny dialogue, and, because this movie definitely needs no introduction because of how really good this movie is. And at first, when I first watched this movie last year in 2023, at first I rated this film 4 out of 5 stars, but then after I watched it the second time, I think there was actually more to this movie that I completely misunderstood. And yeah, and I gotta say, this is definitely a perfectly flawless movie after a second rewatch, after a second watch, and I absolutely loved it. Yeah, and like I said, it's probably my favorite Robin Williams movie out of all of them. And yeah, and I gotta say, like, I think when it comes to like the story in this film, even though this movie is like 2 hours long, like it's like approximately 125 minutes. I actually understood this movie very well because I think the story is actually very understandable, and I think the pacing itself actually went by pretty fast. And that's because I actually understood the story very well, despite the fact this movie's only like 2 hours long. But it actually went by as I understood the story very well. Because yeah, this is definitely a rewatchable film that anyone can watch, and yeah, whenever they want. And I also liked how the opening scene to Mrs. Doubtfire actually has Daniel as a voice actor. Like, he worked as a voice actor at the beginning of the movie, which, yeah, that kind of almost reminded me of some of Robin Williams' voiceover roles that he provided, like the genie from Aladdin. Yeah. Oh yeah, and also when Daniel puts the cake in his face to create a face, like, and he goes, "Hello." Yeah. Yeah, because like I said, this movie has some very funny dialogue, and it's and it gets like serious in some ways, but also considered to be a funny movie too, because this movie's like a dramedy, like a comedy drama. And yeah, what more can I say about Mrs. Doubtfire? And plus, my uncle Charles, he even told me that there was actually some different kinds of alternate versions to this movie. Like I think some alternate versions of this film actually, it actually went through a couple, like, it actually went through a couple ad libs where I think during the onset and behind the scenes, there was actually some ad libs that weren't included in the script. And I also really enjoyed the restaurant scene, towards near the end of the film, like during the restaurant scene. And there was actually like 3 deleted scenes that had to be cut from the restaurant scene, like, where Daniel has to go to the women's restroom to change into his Mrs. Doubtfire costume, like his disguise. And yeah. But yeah, and even Joel Siegel from Good Morning America even calls this movie, Robin Williams is hysterical, sheer genius. The film is fall down funny. Yep, I couldn't agree more. And sneak previews from CNBC, Jeffrey Lyons says Robin Williams is outrageous, hilarious, tender, touching, and brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, because honestly, like I said, this movie clearly needs no introduction. It's a perfect movie, my favorite Robin Williams movie, and this movie still holds up to this very day. So overall, Mrs. Doubtfire was an excellent movie, and also a funny movie too. And I'm gonna give Mrs. Doubtfire 5 out of 5 stars. Yeah, like, it's kind of like I said. At first I rated this movie 4 out of 5 stars when I first watched it last year, but then after I watched it the second time, I decided to give it a 5 out of 5, like a 10 out of 10. Yeah, because I can see all the praise here about this. I can see all the praise going through this movie. And yeah, it's a perfect movie. And if any of you guys out there have not seen Mrs. Doubtfire, I don't know where you've been. Yeah. But yeah, so aside from all that, Mrs. Doubtfire I really enjoyed, and there you have it. Alright guys, so that's my review on Mrs. Doubtfire, and that's going to be it for this video. So make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. And as always, thanks for watching, and until next time, this is Mr. 8 Crizzy saying, Goodbye, everybody, and that's about it.